wish they hadn't never done away with the railroads.
But Kenny's got some questions he wants to ask you, and feel free to add to it if you know what I mean. Yeah, yeah, right behind it in the woods back there. Yeah. Do you know much about the railroad when it was a Culler, or do you know mostly in this area where you live, or Meadowfield? Or
I just know about where we, from the state line, well, all the way from Mount Airy, about where it ran, and on up to the road that cuts across from the top of the mountain up there by Holly Tree Road.
Holly Tree Road's up here where Gene Reynolds used to live. Is that Holly Tree Road?
Yeah, up there at
Bondurant.
Puckett lived.
Yeah, down.
Is Holly Tree Road close to Carter's Mill area, or is that? Holly Tree Road's where we came through there on the, like I was speaking about the racetrack. That's on Clark Street. That's where it goes up Clark Street.
Okay.
Do you remember when they made an effort to standard gauge the line at Mount Airy in 1924?
I just heard them talking about it. I don't know.
You don't know if they graded the extension up, say where you live, and made it right away wider or anything?
They didn't do no grading there. They may have somewhere closer by to Mount Airy.
Yeah, according to newspaper articles in the Mount Airy paper in 1924, they brought in a locomotive and about 20 cars and changed the track right there at the junction area, and made plans to go, you know, on up toward Culler with the standard gauge, but they were going to have to change the roadbed right because an air gauge could go a lot of places. Of course, standard gauge couldn't.
Yeah. Well, right there.
And so I don't know how far, you know, from the junction area they actually went.
I don't believe it ever left Mount Airy.
Okay.
With the widening it out.
All right. What can you tell us about the train that went through your property there where your daddy's store and all was? You mentioned the water tank and going on the train from your house, I believe it was, or the store to the water tank. Can you tell us anything else about the train that you remember there?
Well, I can remember the setting some haystacks fire.
Sparks.
And I can remember the setting the woods afire. And there was talking about somebody, the railroad people had hired somebody, I won't call them names, to put out these fires, and they thought that some of them maybe set them on purpose in order for them to draw a little pay, you know.
Were there any gentlemen that worked on the railroad that lived around close to where you lived at the time? That you can remember the names of the people?
Yes, he did. He can't remember.
One to the hill.
Old man Epperson worked on it. Hayes Epperson worked.
Hayes Epperson?
Hayes Epperson worked on it. Gramble Epperson's grandfather. He worked on the railroad, and he wore two. He'd take off his one good shoe and put on a bad shoe. And I asked him why he done it. Said if he cut his foot, he wouldn't cut his new shoe. And then there was a man killed, 1916. Johnny Pell.
Johnny Pell.
He was on they had a little old pump car.
Yeah, a little hand car. And
his nephew, Mary Pell, was on it and tried to scare him and threw him off and bursted his head. Because we went with the funeral over here at Hunter's Chapel on the wagon. 1960.
So he's buried at Hunter's Chapel Cemetery?
Yeah. July.
Now July of 1916.
That's right.
Johnny Pell. Let's see, whose Pell was he? Was he Joseph Pell's?
Joseph Pell's daddy.
Yeah, there you are.
Daddy.
Is there any other names of people that you can remember worked on the railroad?
I remember the conductor that was on there.
What was his name?
Mercer Patterson.
Was Mercer Patterson?
Yeah, Mercer Patterson. Yeah.
Kitty, she's got a better memory than you and me. I can see that.
And he married Anna Mitchell.
Married Anna Mitchell. Anna Mitchell.
Yeah.
Williams.
Hank. Yeah.
And he was, Mr. Patterson was a conductor, right?
Conductor.
You You remember any of the engineers or station agents
No.
or track crew worked on the track?
No.
Any names of those people?
No.
Did you ever see the train?
I guess I have. I rode it.
You rode the train, okay. How many times did you ride the train?
I don't know. My cousins would come up from from Mount Airy, and we'd go home with them, ride the train.
How far did you ride from Mount Airy? What locations did you get off at?
We rode down close to Dry Bridge. I remember standing on Dry Bridge and watching the trains go under it.
Where is Dry Bridge located at?
On Main Street.
On Main Street, in Mount
North
Airy.
Main. North Main Street.
So you rode the
Dinky, yeah.
Dinky to the downtown area, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Could you tell us some of, what did the train look like to you as, let's say, in your youth?
What kind of cars did it have? Did it have passenger cars or caboose?
Yeah, they had a caboose and they had a passenger car. It just looked like that picture.
Now, what year are you talking about, more or less? About what year?
I can't remember the year.
Was it before 1920?
Yeah, it's 1920.
It was before
I was
1920?
born 1909.
Yeah, so it was before 1920 that you rode the
Yeah.
train.
I was about 8 and 10 years old.
So it was around 1917, 1918. Did you ever see the trains where they haul people on special excursions, or did you just ride a train when they had like a passenger car and a
I
caboose,
just rode
the
there.
regular train?
Now that picture's when they went on excursion.
That was kind of a holiday when they'd have that excursion.
That's a big event, wasn't it?
Yeah, a lot of people's out looking, and watching them.
That's 1902. I had one of them, Porter.
Huh?
I had a copy of that picture. I
You-
told Jim I had.
Yeah.
I
Do you
got-
remember what the locomotive looked like when you rode the train?
No, I don't remember that.
Uh-huh.
Did it use coal or wood for fuel?
I don't remember.
Don't remember what it
used-
burned?
Seemed like they used wood.
I believe they used some of both.
Okay.
Probably did.
If they'd used coal, there'd have been an awful lot of black smoke from it back then, them days.
Mm-hmm.
So evidently they must have used some wood, a lot of wood with it.
So you don't remember having seen too much
Not
smoke?
a lot
on
of
it?
smoke from it,
Mhm. Do you ever remember seeing the train wreck?
I never did, no.
What was it? Somebody was telling about somebody greasing the tracks or something.
Oh, yeah. All kids guilty
That
of
was
that.
some of the Hendricks, after they moved over there.
But there wasn't no train over there then. When Hendricks moved over
No,
there,
the
there
train
wasn't
wasn't over there.
What year are you talking about when the train wasn't there now?
Was it 1920?
20 or 21, somewhere along
There
there.
was no little train running to Culler by that time, right?
Don't think so. It's in them papers there when they did away with it.
What was it you were asked for? It was a specific.
Yeah, I was asking him a while ago how old he was when he rode the train from the store building, you say, up to the water tank.
Yeah.
How old you were?
I'm going to say I was about close to 5 years old.
So it was about 1918, 1919.
Yeah. Well, the picture that you had here a while back, was made on the bridge over in 1919.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've got one of them. I don't know what. Well, you haven't got another, have you?
No, I give you the one hand.
It showed us in the Mount Airy paper, all of us were standing on the bridge. And the 19 and 19 was when it was finished. But I remember on before that, I remember when that bridge, when they was pouring the concrete on top, my brother Mac and Omi King, and I forgot who else was pouring the concrete. I guess I would have probably been at that time 3 years old, maybe A little longer.
How old was you when you fell off down there before the bridge was built and cut your head?
That was when I was about 4 years old.
Sisters are rough, aren't they?
I still
You don't
got,
have one, do you, Tom?
No, I
I
don't.
still got proof of that.
You ought to hear my youngest when they get together now. They'll tell all this stuff they done.
Yeah,
But I
but you
didn't
didn't know
know
about then.
I didn't know about it.
No, that's before the bridge was ever built. Our
So-
daddy would go to Mount Airy and it'd take him all day to get a load of stuff to put in the store. And we'd hear him coming over there on the hill and the wagon, you know, and here we'd go
Beat it.
meet him.
So there's a picture sometime in the Mount Airy paper about 1919 of you on that bridge. Is that what?
Yeah, it was in 1919.
Write that down, Kenny.
Anyway, we'd go on a run, it'd be dark, and Pete and me and my other sister and
Let me ask y'all where the store is right now.
That's not the store.
Yeah, but where it is right now, where did those railroad tracks come compared to where the store is right now?
Oh, from the store now?
Yeah,
Well,
His
it's down
store.
here to my mailbox.
down your mailbox.
That's where it crossed.
It crossed in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what was it said it's a fertilizer
Well,
house.
right there in the corner where you turn down to his house, be on the left of the
Tell them about the
main
grave.
highway here. It was a fertilizer house. They'd bring fertilizer up there, and Rafe Clement, old man Rafe Clement, was an agent for it. So my daddy would go over there and get fertilizer, and we'd go with him in the wagon. And people around and buy the fertilizer. And beside of that building, there was a little black boy bed.
Cedar tree wasn't there.
And there was a cedar tree beside the building. And it was there for years, and then there was 2 or 3 men got the job cutting cedars. My daddy let them cut that down. But that little Culler was buried there.
While they was cutting them cedars, the orchard people claimed that
They're damaging the apples.
they put rust on the apples.
They went around through the country and cut out all the
Yeah,
cedar
they cut
trees.
out
So,
all the cedar trees.
The railroad ran from right there about where your driveway is between your house now and the river and down to Clark's
No,
Creek? Or
no.
did it come,
No,
it do some turn
it
or
was
something?
above his
I'd love to
house.
show you where it was.
It was above his house.
Above his house.
Between your house and the store
Yeah,
Yeah.
now. The store now.
Yeah.
about halfway.
About halfway.
Close to it.
Out there, and
Okay.
it went out and above his stable line, and on out the pond.
And then down toward Clark's Creek.
Oh,
Went
I
on
don't
up there
know.
at the end of that bottom, up there where Joe Slate lives, back along up and behind
Yeah.
that.
It's about 30 feet up on the bank.
he's got a pond out there.
So it's on the high ground above Clark's Creek.
Yeah.
Going out through there.
Yeah.
But eventually, does it eventually go down to where it's about on the same level as the creek?
No,
Way on out?
not till it gets up next to Lash Lakes.
Okay.
And then there was a water tank.
Okay.
There was a water tank
Is
up
that
there.
that old tank that set up there? Used to be some kind of old tank or something
It's a
sitting
wooden
up there.
tank.
It was wood. It's about
Well, this was
almost
metal.
large as this room.
Set up
Used to be
on
some
the-
kind of old tank
Oh.
used to
This
set up there.
branch run down and run into it.
So would that be, you know, like the Trucker Lane, the road that goes by Lee Smith's house? You know how that road comes down to the Pettigo Ridge Road? Was the water tank right about where them 2 roads come together there up at Clark's Creek? You know what I'm talking about?
Bud Smith's
No,
place.
no, water tank was well down the line here.
Water
That was
tank
way
is
too far up.
Oh, so it's closer to your house then?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You know where Lash Lake lives across the creek? All right. It's right there.
Okay.
His house.
About where Laird's driveway is, after you cross the bridge, if you go straight on,
To the right of his driveway.
instead of turning up to Laird's house, you'd come to about where the water tank was. down
Okay. And that's where there's another little stream comes in right there. Isn't that where Rystack Creek or whatever they call it? I forget what they call it now, but isn't there a little creek
Well,
there
where
pretty
they
close?
did that pond above Lash.
Okay.
That's
okay.
the branch, we call it branch where it
Yeah.
run in.
Yeah, the map, I'm just looking at the map, and the map calls it Rye Shank Branch or something. It's got some wild name.
I never heard of that.
Yeah, it's on the map here. I never heard of it either.
Is that the water tank you were talking about you hoboed the train
Yeah.
to?
It
Okay.
was on that branch.
Okay, how long a ride was that?
Oh,
It wasn't far.
about 3/4 of a mile.
Yeah.
A little more.
By the time you got interested, it's time to get off, huh?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't nothing just chugging along.
Yeah. Did you ever see him haul anything other than lumber in large amounts of any other type merchandise?
It seems to me like I saw him hauling some tan bark one time.
They hauled anything anybody wanted them to.
I guess it would.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a letter over there that Tom Bondurant, when he was discharged from the Army and from General Pershing, and I was reading that. Me and Tom was in the Ruling Club together. I was in it for 53 years, still in it. Well, Tom would talk to me about the war, you know, World War I, that he was in it. Well, one time he told me, he said, there's one thing I remember that there's not many people ever heard about. Said we drove a herd of turkeys to Mount Airy.
Yeah. I've seen pictures of it.
Huh?
I've seen pictures of that.
I said, well, how you mean? He said, well, we was all boys, and said one or two behind, one or two here, and a leader in front, and says we kept them herded in between us to Mount Airy. Now that was what he told.
That might have something about the railroad on it.
So you saw the pictures of the turkeys?
Yeah, I've seen pictures of the turkey drive. Yeah, I've seen a
Oh,
couple
it
pictures.
wasn't this one.
I don't think it was just a turkey drive. I don't
Yeah.
know which one it was. But I've seen
I just
pictures.
thought that might be interesting too.
Yeah, I thought, didn't they bring them? Somebody told me they used to bring them down from the mountain too, like bring
Well,
them down.
I think that's where they got all these turkeys. Or some people who lived around had so many
Yeah,
turkeys.
like bring them down Squirrel Spur or some crazy
Yeah.
thing like
Jar
that.
Gap.
Yeah.
Jar Gap.
That's like a lot of people was tight. They used to stop over there at Dad's and get water all the time on the mountain and on above there, you know, round over close to Meadows of Dan and up in there. Well, they'd stop over there. There, some of them would stay all night. We had one time we'd have maybe a jeweler that would stop. Was working on watches, and he had his little suitcase, you know, and he'd spend the night.
Well, didn't they say the campground used to be there in front of the house?
And
People to
next
spend the
morning
night.
he'd leave a quarter at the plate, you know, and after spending the night. Well, a few days later we may have that was a jeweler, what have you, one with glasses, worked on your glasses, you know, with a little suitcase, traveling.
Well, one time
They
too,
call them traveling salesmen, I think.
it was across the road from the old house down there. The road was close to the house then where we was raised. And they camped across the road. Matilda Banks, his wife, would spend the night. She'd come to the house and stay, and the men would stay out there. Well, they was hauling lumber. That's way before the bridge was built. And I forgot who it was, had a team of horses, and one of them was balky. Matilda Banks told him to tie a rope around its tongue, and it would pull. Then they tied the rope around it, pulled its tongue out. And old man Allen Johnson took the horse and fed it soft food. Matilda Banks stopped, and they stayed all night. His wife was at the house. Porter looked up at him and says, "You the man that pulled the horse's tongue out?" And Mr. Banks never did stay all night no more. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. I remember another thing that happened over there. This guy stopped with one of the wagons, you know, a lot of the wagons had that sloping bed behind. And Pete and myself looked in there and he had, oh boy, pretty apples. He stopped and got one, you know, to drink. And we tried to get him to give us an apple. He wouldn't give us an apple.
Sticky
Pete says, let's follow him on across the river, the creek down the, had to cross the creek below where the bridge is now, on with the wagon, you know. And we got on the coupling pole of the wagon. If you know what the coupling pole was, it made the extension to make it long coupling. We got on that, and we rode, he couldn't see us back there, you know. Started up the hill, Pete was in front, he worked the board loose, you know. Out come the apple, blink, 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 blink. We rode, what, about 30 feet, and we got off, and we started picking up apples, you know, filled our pockets with. By that time, he stopped. He saw what was going on. We was running backwards towards the creek, you know. Pete says, I guess he wished he'd give us an apple now.
Do you remember where the railroad, when it went up Clark's Creek, where it crossed over, or did it cross over the creek eventually and go to the other side of Clark's Creek somewhere, way on up?
I don't remember on up. It must have been up there around. There was a bridge. You know where the Jessup lives.
Mm-hmm.
He married
Married Gammons, didn't he? Married
Thanks to
Gammons'
Gammons' girl, I believe.
Yeah,
He got a boy.
that's pretty far on up.
McAllen or something. Anyway, it crossed right there. Best I remember, behind that barn.
Okay.
It's there. And went straight on around there, up the hollow. Well, time it got up to the next crossing, Holly Tree Road, Clark's Creek wasn't much size, but when it got up there, you know.
Yeah.
But didn't the track go through the bottom, the other side of Larry Slade's? Up by the mill?
Yeah, it went right through where the old sawmill and mill grinding was.
Who run the sawmill?
Buckhart was a,
It wasn't a sawmill, it was where they ground meal.
well, they ground meal and they had a
Grist
sawmill
mill.
too.
Grist mill,
I
yeah,
didn't
had
know
both
they
in
had a
problem.
sawmill.
Yeah, they had a sawmill there. All they had to do
Was
was
that-
switch a belt, you
Was
know,
that Vic?
from a boiler to the engine to the switch a belt to grind with. And
What was Vic Buckhart's husband's name? Was it John?
John Buckhart.
John, Jesse's daddy.
Berthart, B-U-R-K-H-A-R-D-T, right?
H-A-R-T, I reckon that's what it was.
Ran a grist mill there near the railroad.
Mhm.
Well, you're talking about bridges. What kind of bridges were they? Did they put timber in the creeks or the rivers and just put
Yeah.
the rail on top of it, or did they build concrete piers?
no, they most of them just had, they set
Wood.
on,
Wood? They
Wood.
built them like in a square, and
Yeah.
then put the rail across the top, so that way when a flood hit or something, it wouldn't take them long to replace it.
that's right, they just, the bridge, best I remember, went down sitting on some kind of another log, maybe, a square something.
But they built like a square, and built it
Yeah.
up to the elevation they needed to
Yeah.
go across the.
And then it had cross pieces, you know,
Okay.
Well, down past that bridge there, you used to have to ford the creek. Go over there, and they had a foot log, and they had it chained to a tree. And it'd come up a rain, and they'd wash that foot log around, and they'd go pull it back around.
Yeah.
You know, the creek would get up. And they'd go pull it. That's the only way they had to get over there. They had to ford the creek. And that's where you and Daddy had started over at Mary Marshall's one night and had the lantern, and Bud Willis got stuck over there. And Daddy helped him get out, and when he did, he ran over his lantern.
Did you ever see them load lumber on the train, or
never did.
you never did see them do that?
Uncle Mac Pettigo had a
Commissary.
way just below the railroad there above Porter's house. It was a big platform, and it had weights. It was up. I reckon to weigh cattle on. I guess they haul cattle too.
Could have.
But I'm having them weights there. We'll see weigh most anything on them already.
No, the old Mill Pond Seal, when they built this last bridge over there, I believe it was built in '53, they tore that seal out where the framework for that pond was, you know.
Now, where's the pond located you're talking
Right
about?
below my house there, where the creek, where the bridge is.
Right.
All that bottom was covered in water, you know. And right below my house, 20 feet from my house, they had an ice house, an ice hole, you know. It was about the size of a tobacco barn, about 18 foot square, and went down to the ground about 16 foot. And they'd haul that ice up there, and there was a ladder went down in it. You remember Cassie, the ladder going down in it?
She said she always made her scared to go in there.
Ah.
Said she
I didn't go
scared
in it. I lay there and looked down in it. You could see frogs down in there.
Well, did your daddy own the ice
No,
pit, or did the railroad?
No, our granddad and them raised that, owned that over there.
Oh, I see.
Just said y'all used to,
Great grandfather,
Yeah.
grandfather, and
Louis
great grandfather.
Pettigo.
They all lived
well,
over
you said
there.
y'all used to go down there and skate on that mill pond.
No,
used to go
I
did
didn't.
skate on- you didn't skate on?
No, other people
Some of them
did.
did.
Our
So-
mother
Skated
did.
on the mill
There
pond.
was a dam on Clark's Creek that backed up
Yeah.
Oh,
pond into your bottom.
It covered all that bottom.
It covered all that bottom up in
Yeah.
there. When did the dam go away?
I believe it was 98. I believe it was 18 and 98. I was asking Pat McBride about it,
I can't remember it.
and I believe he told me that he was a little boy, and he come down there and said they'd heard that the dam had busted the night before, and he said we went down there. Says I was just a little boy, and I walked with my daddy, and he said it was all mud holes in it, and the fishes were flopping on where there was holes, you know.
Well, there was a mill down there where the Pettigos had a mill, you know. And right there, on this side of the bridge there's a spring on the edge of, where's that at, for right close to the road, the spring.
So the dam's about where the bridge is today?
Just above a bridge.
So I never had heard that.
There was a blacksmith shop,
Up on the hill.
yeah, right up on the hill there.
Okay.
You remember the railroad having anything in your area there where you were raised other than the water tank and the track itself? Did they have any other railroad facilities there in that area?
No.
Not as I know of.
Did they have, for instance, another track where one train could pass the other that you recall? Or just the one railroad track?
Well, now where is Meadowfield?
Bateman Strait.
Is that Bateman Strait?
Yeah, like where Bateman Strait is.
Well, didn't you have something about the post office down
I
there?
got all that
You
stuff
got
where it
all
run
the
and
information on
everything.
post offices.
Yeah. It probably got something in there about the railroad too.
So now, Porter, you would tell me, you were saying about Tom Barnard and the Turkey Drive. That was after World War I, about 1918 or something.
Yeah. See, I believe it ended in 1918.
What about the hog drives they used to have too, long years ago?
Yeah, they used to have cattle drive.
They
Sheep.
drive hogs.
Well, I just think having a turkey drive, that's got to be the funniest thing I can
Look like it
imagine.
fly. Like it fly.
I remember my grandpa selling a big bull. Wasn't a beef type bull. To Stewart. Got him,
Stewart's meat market.
killing abattoir this side of town, and out right about 100 yards from where the cemetery is. And Grandpa told him, he said, now I'm selling you that animal, but says you're going to have to load him. Says I'll have nothing to do with it. So he come with his wagon, you know, where they had to haul him in, and the wagon had tires about 4 inches wide on it, and a team of horses to it, and a great big high frame on that wagon. He pulled it over there, and he had a cow in there. It was in heat, and he opened the gate, and the bull run right in, and closed the gate, and drove off with it.
What about Black Nat Smith putting the hog on the railroad track?
I believe I told that. Nat Smith, he'd sold Stewart Brothers a hog that died, when they went to cut it up, they found that the blood wasn't right. It just died, you know. It hadn't been killed. And they sent him word by somebody. If he didn't come and get that hog, that they're going to sue him. And he went with his one horse wagon, and he lived right there just above Theodore Gwynn's at the public church. And he went and got it, and he brought it back, and over here where Trent Cromer's got his barn, you know, all that was just a field there. He pulled it out there and pulled it off beside the railroad track. And it laid there, and it's Christmas time. These guys operating that train come along, and somebody told them about it. And I think there's a drinking, and according to what Dad told me one time, he said they got that hog up and crammed him in the firebox, you know. And said it never did get hot till it got way on down there about the Fulton place this side of town. And said when it got there, he said everything as steam was blowing out from every place it was. And they had to break it to hold it back.
So they just about blew the boiler up on the hog.
Yeah, the grease got hot.
That grease got hot, I guess it did.
Well, you know up here where Lucy Carter's store was.
Uh-huh.
Remember where Lucy's store was? They said one year the thrashing machine used to go around through the neighborhood, you know. And they'd spend the night. We used to like playing the wheat. You know, they'd shop the wheat and all. And they said that one night Adam King had to spend the night there. And said he went in to go to bed and said the bed was pretty clean and white. He's going to sleep on the floor. Said Aunt Lucy said no, said you sleep in that bed. Said there's never a black person slept in it. She kept it especially for white people. You know, they'd come down off of the mountain and have to spend the night. She kept it especially for them.
Did you read that, Tom?
Yes, ma'am.
That's
She got Pauline Carter's wheel in that envelope right there.
That's my aunt, Paulina Carter.
was it?
Yeah.
What's his name? Sent me that. How come
James
he
Stewart Love?
James Stewart sent me that copy of that will.
She was a sister to my great-great-granddad.
Oh,
And she had a brother that lived up here, was a doctor, George Washington Clement.
yeah. Well, you got the history of the Clements?
I have a lot of it.
I've got some. See, she married a Clement.
Yeah. I have a lot of it. The Rapey would have been a first cousin to my great-granddad.
Which Rapey? Old man Rapey?
Big Rapey, yeah.
The old man.
Mm-hmm.
You can't remember when they lived out there at the crossroads.
Oh, I don't remember, no.
You can't do
No.
that, no.
I've heard of them a lot. I've heard Aunt Paulina all my life, but I don't.
Well, now that Rafe and John Webber get along good together. John Webber lived back across the road, you know. Oscar Culler and his brother married Oscar Webber. They lived
That was
out
on the
there.
Smith side.
Yeah, on the Smith
That was
side.
on the Smith side.
Rafe Clement, the old man, married a Smith.
He married Ann Smith.
And John Webber married a Smith. His sisters.
You know,
They got in the fuss. And the old man Rafe told Aggie, he went in the store and he threatened to hit him. He says, you won't hit me, so she hit him in the head.
Anthony could have told us about that this morning, but we didn't have time. He tells a story about him getting into it too.
All the time.
You mentioned Meadowfield a while ago,
Yeah.
Carrie Sue. Do you remember anything about the train being at Meadowfield?
No, but I've got if you'll move, I'll show you some
Okay.
more books.
Go away, kitty. She's got the books now. Okay.
Probably knows where they are too.
Yeah. Now, Carrie Sue, now was it your grandmother or your great grandmother would have known Jeb Stewart? Didn't you?
My great-grandmother.
Great-grandmother knew Jim
Yeah.
Stewart.
I hears about the, no, that's a big
Petticoats. Petticoats lived right next door to him.
Well, you know up here where when they changed the road numbers, the names of the road 911, and there's a place up here in Willis Gap, and this lady from Winston, you might have seen it in the paper, and she wanted the name changed to Ahart Ridge Road.
Yeah, yeah.
And it said years ago that there was a lady lived up there, Granny Scott, and this Ahart man, somebody had told Granny Scott if she'd drink out of a silver cup for 9 days, she'd turn into a witch or anything she wanted to. So one day, Ahart man was out hunting, and he thought a deer, and he shot it, but it was Granny Scott.
Oh,
But it didn't kill her. And so she had taught his 5-year-old son how to do that, so he went out one day, thought it was a deer, and it was his 5-year-old son. And he shot him, his son, and killed him, said, shot him with a silver bullet, and up there next to Tate Bowman's, they said there was a barn with a log in it, had that silver bullet in it. And it said he was buried on Peter Bondurant farm, the little boy was. And Mama said Peter Bondurant was her grandpa, and said she never heard that tale. Said she'd probably heard it, because they pass these tales on down, and that's it.
I used to go up there and stay and ramble over the hills, but I never heard it.
But they changed the road to have Ahart Ridge Road.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that in the paper.
Uh-huh.
A lot of the tales that these mountain people told, I guess, was right funny.
Desmond, you just ain't got enough time of the day, trust me.
Well, I heard WPAQ the other day, Robbie and Ralph, they was played that song about the lost
Yes,
family.
ma'am, I've seen those several times. What,
There's going to be at 27th of September at the library at Mount Airy, there's going to be a story, some lady going to tell about the Lawson family.
yeah, I've been to that.
Have you been?
I've been to it in Stokes County.
Yeah, I heard it's done there not long ago.
Yeah, I've been to it. It's about the Bloody Christmas.
Yeah, I've got that book, Bloody Christmas, White Christmas, Bloody Christmas.
Yeah. But they did Stokes County. I went down and saw them do it at Stokes County.
Yeah, I hope.
That's Esther Johnson she's talking.
I hope I can go down here at Mount Airy at 27th.
I'm talking the next night at the cafe on Main Street about Jeb Stewart
Are you?
in Mount Airy. Talking
The 28th?
The 28th.
You're talking where?
The cafe on Main Street there at the Emporium, the Main Oak Emporium
Main Oak
thing.
Emporium, yeah.
About 7 o'clock on the 28th. I'm going to give a talk about Jeb Stewart in there.
You just not gonna let old Jim.
Well, you know,
I'm going to keep him alive.
You know, I have never been in that Main Oak Emporium
Yeah,
yet.
it's pretty new.
I've never been in there yet.
It's pretty new.
They say it's nice in there, but I've never been in there.
But, Kenny, are we forgetting any railroad questions here?
Who was the lady that was with you up there a while back that looks after the
The museum?
Yeah.
Amy Snyder at the museum on Main Street.
What are they doing? Making a road down here?
The birthplace, you mean?
Yeah.
They're widening the
Widening.
entrance so they can have cars coming and going
Oh, yeah.
in right
Not
there
having a one lane.
instead of having the one lane.
Yeah, I heard that Tim Chadwick, he's talking about them coming up there and playing. He was on yesterday, radio. He said they've always played up there.
Yeah.
I noticed a leaflet over there in the store that they'll go about the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to have a couple of them.
Okay, I'll bring you some. I'll bring you some.
I know 2 or 3 people away from here that would like to come.
Yeah, I'll bring you some. I'll bring you some down to your house.
Well,
But I've been going around doing this talk about Jeb, you know, so Carrie Sue can pick on me about it.
yeah, talk him up.
But oh God, I bet I've talked to 500 people in the last 2 months about. Even Desmond's had to endure it.
He's riding that horse.
Yeah, but it's the battle he gets killed in. I talk about the battle he gets killed in.
They didn't have what they had in World War II that we was in.
Oh,
We waited on the Rhine River for them to build a pontoon bridge across. It wasn't but just a little while till the engineers had that thing up where the trucks was going across and everything.
Jeb would have just splashed on in and kept on going.
If he had his horse
Did
there.
you ever know where he first went to school?
Yes, ma'am.
Where?
You told me it was
The log house.
Log House. It was taught by a guy named Mundy, I believe. I think it was
Well, I had
Johnny Mundy or
I
something.
had that record, but It was above Porter Store over there
Yeah.
on the road.
Yeah, you gave me that years ago. You gave
Yeah.
me that years ago.
That's his first school.
That's his first school. Yep. You gave me that much. Johnny Mundy, I think, was the guy that said was the teacher. No, but it would be all, you see, the Pettigos and Stewarts all have lived right there together, so that's two huge families.
Well,
Yeah.
If you put the children, that's a huge.
Well, they used to walk up here to Rabbit Ridge School.
Yeah,
Mama,
that's
Mama said there'd be about 15 or 20.
yeah,
yeah.
that's where you and Shug went up on Rabbit Ridge.
The
didn't you?
Scaleses and Bondurants.
And she gave me this picture of her and Shug and all of them when they were kids.
Oh,
and
and group pictures.
It's Jeb Stewart School
Oh, yeah.
up on the building.
and then somebody put it, Rabbit
Rabbit
Ridge.
Ridge.
Porter, you probably were too young.
No,
That
I went to
picture.
school up there.
Yeah, but you were too young for that picture, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
You were too young for that picture. Now, Kenny, you want to have some fun? Carrie Sue showed me a picture of Porter when he was about 18, 20.
Yeah.
He was just about movie star. Good
Yeah.
looking.
I seen an article right here. Says something about here. It says men in the 90s healthier than men 65 to 75. You must have been reading this article and doing what it says.
Said what?
Men in the 90s are healthier than men 65 to 75. So you must have been going by this article in the paper.
They probably are. If they live that long, they're supposed to be.
If you get to 90, you got to be pretty healthy.
That's like I went to the doctor a while back, and I didn't want to go, but I'd taken
Two or three.
uh,
How that.
two Dobercheck pills and two Tylenol, and we was driving.
Which one are you in this picture, Carrie Sue?
And I still had a pain, so I take a 15 mg morphine pill. They need that for the crack or something.
Y'all remember who the teacher was, do you?
And I went over there and coming on back down 89, I began to couldn't breathe, you know. Helen Anderson was with me. She told me to pull over. I said, there's nowhere to pull over here. We was at the school. Went on down to the road down there, and I pulled over and stopped. And a woman across the street, she hollered her and told her to call the ambulance, and she did. And I sat there, and I began to get better. By that time, the ambulance come and got me out of there on a stretcher, you know, and put me in the ambulance. Giving me this, that, and the other, and asking me questions.
You just had one drink too
Carried me
many.
to the hospital. And time I got to the hospital, I said, there's not a thing in the world wrong with me. I says, I know what it was, just taking the wrong kind of medicine. Didn't need nothing.
Took it all on empty.
Well, I got there and they kept me overnight. And I says, there's nothing wrong, let me go home. We'll keep you all night anyway, we just want to make sure. Well, I stayed all night and they left me up home the next morning. I should have walked on home anyway. Well, I got the bill from the ambulance service, $567 for bringing me 2 7/10 miles. So I went over there to pay the bill, and I laid my insurance out. You'll have to wait till we file the insurance. I said, well, why'd you send me this bill? So it cost me around over $1,000.
Well, next time, maybe you'll eat some.
Well, I didn't have enough to eat.
I bet you did.
Carrie Sue, can you tell me what color the caboose was when you rode the train?
Was it raining?
I believe it was a dark blue,
Dark blue.
almost black.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
What was the color of the passenger car that you rode?
I can't remember.
Were there many people on the passenger train when you rode it?
Oh, I can't remember that.
She's so excited.
You
she
can
can't
remember the excursion though on the flat car, can't you?
No, I wasn't on
You
that.
can't. I can remember it.
I
The
was
board
on the-
around it.
Now, Carrie Sue,
I was
and
on that with you.
let's say in Porter, years ago, there was a circus that came up to Culler. Do y'all remember that? It came on a railroad. It was somewhat of a small circus, or carnival. Do you remember
I
that?
don't remember
No, I don't
Okay.
know. We didn't go much then.
Uh,
We was young and we didn't get out.
how about
to go.
the White Sulphur Springs Hotel? Y'all remember anything about the hotel that was down there?
Yeah, that's good drinking water.
Lord, me and Elizabeth Hill used to go down there, and Margaret Chandler, boys, we'd go down there on Sunday and sit on that bench and we'd watch those people come from Mount Airy to get that sulphur water.
That's a dance hall
They
there
had the
too.
dances over there in the hotel. And Margaret, I don't know
I
if you
bought
know
some
her.
stuff when they sold that out.
I think that's
It's in
dance
the-
hall.
some
You
of the
know
papers.
Francis Smith, don't you?
Who?
Francis Smith worked at the building alone.
Yeah,
Francis Chandler
vaguely.
Smith.
Yeah, vaguely. Yeah.
Her mother and daddy, Isaac and Martha Chandler, lived over there in the hotel after it burned.
Okay.
They lived in 2 or 3 of the rooms of the hotel.
Have you ever been over there where the old hotel was? The White Sulphur Springs? You ever been there?
Dr. Richards.
We were right over there after a while if y'all want to see where it was. We'll go over there if y'all want to.
Right, Mrs. Clement, how far was the railroad from the hotel?
I don't know. I don't know how far it was.
Carrie, let's see, do you remember
It
how
was
far
on
the
this-
railroad
It was
was?
on this side of the river,
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
where the bridge is. How far would, it wouldn't have been far.
Probably about
The
1,000
hotel.
yards.
Between the road and
The
From the
hotel,
hotel, it would have been
it shows you a picture of that hotel in there.
200,
Yeah.
And
200
it
yards
had
or
a
more.
big, long
Okay, that's
way on down
that's
to the
about
river.
800 feet.
Porter, did you ever go down there courting to that dance?
No, I went down there. When I was a boy, you know. A bunch of us would go down there at night, you know, when they'd have something. That place was built up, I believe, on poles or something. I don't remember. But upstairs is where they up above where they had
balcony like.
the dance.
Balcony.
Yeah, up about 8 feet, you know, boards around it.
I've been in it when Miss Chandler, when Isaac and Martha lived there. I've been in there.
I never did go in it.
Had a bunch of rooms.
So you didn't go down there trying to find a young woman?
No, I can't.
For some reason, I just have this image of you fitting right in there.
He never did go with nobody, don't reckon, but Carl. Did you?
I went with Beer Culler once or twice, and Lucille Estes once or twice. That's about all the girls I ever went with.
Is it true that both of y'all, you keep like a daily journal about your life, and you've been doing it for years? Isn't that true that both of you do that in some way?
I've
keep
got
a
3
diary.
big boxes of her diaries.
Yeah.
Oh, well, some of you
keep-
can't read it.
I kept a diary. I picked it up a while back, 1937. It's a lot of trouble.
It's hard to do it every day.
That's
y'all.
right. That's
Every
That's
night.
just like
before I
this
go to
calendar.
bed,
that I've got now from the Veterans World War Memorial up there in Washington, you know.
Yeah.
It's got a big space for notes, you know. Been keeping it on that for the last 4 years.
I get this old farmer's almanac. It's like a little booklet with, you flip the pages over and the back of it's blank, and I try to write on the back of that.
Yeah.
I've been doing it about 3 years, I guess. But I forget one day, and 2 or 3 days, then I rack my brain trying to think, well, what did I do yesterday?
You got to go back and
I can't
Rewrite.
remember sometimes.
What, Carrie Sue, have y'all had any thought about what you're going to do with her, all her stuff? Or are you going to try to keep it, put it?
They're going to dump it down the hall.
They better not dump it down the
No.
hall. Because I tell you, I'll bet you that's a treasure trove.
Well, it's something people
it
nowadays
will be
don't know
for
that.
somebody
Yeah.
someday
I mean, it really is.
if the world lasts.
Well, all these little ones, the reason I keep records and all, only kind of these little fellas coming up.
Yeah,
You don't know that. If people don't keep records, what are they going to know?
right.
Nothing.
And that's what I
Lot
mean.
of it's
Has the
gonna be
family actually ever thought about what you're going to do with all the stuff?
Now, Joyce, she don't care much about it.